Little bit of a different title today. And I thought we'd do one of these practical herbal videos because I know there's a few of you guys out there that enjoy looking and talking about this stuff. And so we're going to dig in. We're actually going to we're going to mix a formula up for this topic. And there's somebody in the family dealing with this, and so I was sitting down today going over my formulas, and thought, well, okay, let's talk about this one because this is very practical. Now, UTIs are similarly related, right? So in men you have, I'm just going to be candid here, right? In men you have the prostate issues, and then you have the urinary tract infections, which can span both, but you see that a bit more in women. Kidney stones, all of this stuff, honestly, you'll see some different formulas for each. And I'm a big fan of the Dr. Christopher formulas. This is the School of Natural Healing, which is a phenomenal book. And the formula I'm making today is actually based on stuff out of Dr. Christopher's writings and some of his formulas, but it's a slight variant of it. And what I found, hey guys, I see you in there. Good to see you. Spread the word if you know anybody that likes this practical stuff. So we're going to make an herbal formula today for urinary tract, bladder infections, prostate, kidney stones, things like that. Now listen very obviously, I am not a doctor. I am not your doctor. What we're looking at today has not been approved by the criminal syndicate called the FDA, and do your own research. What I'm sharing today is just what I use, so don't assume that because I'm saying this that this is for sale, that it's approved by the federal DA crime syndicate, or that it's perfect, right? Most of these are not my ideas, but we're going to be talking about herbs. I'll mention a few of them in terms of maybe what they do, but hey, Kel, if you want to research these individually, I always encourage people. I try to say, hey, I use this, right? But I encourage people to do their own research. This is all stuff you can buy readily in bulk and mix up yourself. So I'm not here to sell it to you. I'm just here to share some information as we mix this up. Of course, if you've dealt with a UTI, I mean, yeah, there's all kinds of remedies for kidney stones and UTIs and stuff. And frankly, some of them work. I mean, yeah, I believe I've heard of the one where they mix Sprite or Mountain Dew and some other stuff, which, it has a lot of sugar in it, so there might be a negative too. But what I'm going to talk about today is just some stuff that's been around for a long time, and some formulas, some herbs that have been around for a long time. This formula you'll see out there. What I'm using today, you'll see similar variations of it out there. Cranberry juice, raw cranberry juice is also good. I'm sure you've heard that. And this you'll see pretty much talked about everywhere. And we won't go into the science of what raw cranberry juice does because it'll make this too long, but just raw cranberry juice, it's very tart. To be honest, I like it. When you start doing herbs and medicine and things like that, and I'm not fanatical, right? I mean, I have candy. I'll eat chocolate or have a soda pop now and then. But when you make savory foods and we use herbs and bitters, you start to appreciate the natural tartness of things, the bitterness of things like that. Good stuff. It's not actually me dealing with this right now, but hey, why not, right? This is not wine I'm drinking. Much tartar. Okay, cranberry juice is good. That's not the formula we're making today. We are going to make the Yuri formula, and it is similar. You'll find this to be very close to like Dr. Christopher's. If you wanted to buy this commercially, Dr. Christopher's prostate formula is pretty close to this. We're going to start with Oregon Grape. And I'm going to turn on my scale. I'm going to turn the camera down away from me just for a minute while we do this. Let me adjust things a little bit here with the camera. And we will just do seltzer. Yeah, and you could put the cranberry juice. Would actually be good in sparkling water. In fact, I made some of that up here. Something to Google, why does water taste colder when it's carbonated? I love carbonated water. I didn't used to, but I really do. So we could take some of this carbonated water, You could add a little cranberry. It's good. It's good. It's an official recipe now. Hey, you making fun of me? So, we're going to start with Oregon Grape on this one. And Oregon Grape, a lot of the formulas, you'll see a lot of the classic formulas for this. I'm just going to turn the camera down here. You'll see classic formulas on this, and they call for Golden Seal. Golden Seal is very good, and I have it, and I use it often when the formulas call for it. But if you study Oregon Grape, Golden Seal is kind of hard to come by because it needs to be harvested wild, and it is expensive. A 4-ounce bag of Golden Seal might cost $40 or $50. Oregon Grape is very easy to come by. They're both a berberine herb, and they have a lot of similar properties. There's a good discussion of this in Herbal Antibiotics by Stephen Harold Boehner. And that's a great book as well, even though we're not specifically doing an antibiotic, although this is antibiotic in nature, and you may be dealing with bacteria, obviously, when you're dealing with a urinary tract. So there is some Golden Seal. I'm just going to go in. I'm going to set up my... Honestly, there's no alcohol. This is not alcoholic cranberry juice, guys, so don't even try it. Don't even try the troll. They're going to be like, oh, he knocked over his thing. Actually, I like this small scale because it's precise, down to about 1/10 of a gram, which is nice for herbs, but it's a little small. I do have a bigger one if I'm doing larger batches of stuff. So I'm going to hit my tare, and I'm going to zero that out. I'm just going to make a fairly small batch in here, and I'm just going to do, let's call it, I'm going to do 2 parts of this in this formula. And of course, I vary these formulas, right? I mean, I'll make a formula, and then I'll see how it works, or I'll use somebody's formula, and then sometimes I'll change the ratio of something or tinker around. What I usually do, I'm going to hit tare again, so I'm zeroing it out. I put 20 grams in, okay? So 2 parts of this, that means 10 grams of all the other herbs. Very simple. What I do, I get all my herbs out in the jars, and then I set them over here. I set my scale here, and I set the others over here, right? And so I always know which ones have gone in the jar as I'm working. Okay, so Uva Ursi, this is one you'll see talked about a lot for bladder, prostate, urinary things. So that's a good one, and we'll put 10 grams of that in. I thought about doing 2 parts, but I think we'll leave it at this for now, okay? And we'll do this one here, gravel root. There's the gravel root. 10 grams of that. And so remember, I mean, you don't have to use this amount. Basically, it was 2 parts Golden Seal and 1 part of all the others is what I'm doing today. Okay? And let's tear that again. And 10 grams of the marshmallow, excuse me, not marshmallow, parsley root. Parsley root, interestingly, parsley's green, right? But this is very white stuff. And it's actually kind of good. It's a little bit sweet. And the root of the parsley, like in most things, tends to be stronger than the leaf. Nothing wrong with the leaf, but in most situations, root is stronger. Okay, so I'm going to put my 10 grams of the parsley root in there. And parsley and related things, whether it's fresh parsley juice, parsley root, is known. A lot of people swear by this for things related to not urinating enough, things like that, trying to get things flowing in that area, for lack of a better word. Okay, so parsley root. We're going to do ginger root. So I'm going to hit that tare again. Ginger root. You'll find if you look up all of these things, some of the herbs are very broad spectrum, but you'll find that certain herbs are used commonly in things because they are kind of synergists. They help things to carry better, because distribution and things in terms of herbs getting through the digestive system and into the systems they need to be in. And so we're not going to go into all the science of those right now, but you'll see herbs like that. You'll see Cayenne in a lot of things, particularly Dr. Christopher's formulas. I'm actually going to do... Cayenne's very potent. I'm just going to do a half part of Cayenne today because it is very strong rather than 1 part. I know I said 1 part, but I just did a half part of the Cayenne. All right, so 5 grams of that. Lobelia leaf and seed, another very versatile herb. and one that some people really swear by for just helping other herbs be more effective. But I'm just going to put one part of that in there. Lobelia is often demonized, and it's a phenomenal herb. I get it in seed stage. I also have Lobelia seed, and the Lobelia is a very strong antispasmodic. And here, let me just turn this camera up for a second. Strong antispasmodic in the Lobelia. I keep Lobelia around as a tincture. And I think I have some right here. Is a Lobelia tincture. It's very strong. So when you take Lobelia tincture, let's say I took it for cramps, or I'll use it to loosen a dry cough. I find for me it's very effective for that. And so people that I've talked with about Lobelia, they start using Lobelia for things, and oftentimes they just really love it. Low dosage, like 10 drops. I have had someone who had Lobelia before, and they just like dumped it in, right? And I told them, right, if I make something up for somebody, you know, I tell them what it is. And they had gotten some Lobelia, but they dumped it in and got more than the 10 drops. I say, hey, start with like 8 to 10 drops and just make sure. I learned about this because when I used to get herbs in, I would try them on myself. And so I was excited, and I would get a new herb in, and I would make a cup of tea of that herb and just try it. So with Lobelia, I made a cup of Lobelia tea, and I'm guzzling it down, sitting on the couch, watching a movie or something, and all of a sudden I'm feeling really nauseous. Well, I rush to the herb book. This was when I was very new, and I rush in and I like look it up, and it's like, this is an emetic in large doses, and it will make you throw up. And I'm like, oh. So I went out and took deep breaths, and you know, it's like, okay, it doesn't kill you. That's why sometimes Lobelia gets a bad rap, because it is a natural emetic, and I had somebody that dumped a bunch in and guzzled it down, and yeah, it's an emetic. It almost was an emetic on me that night, but I was right on the edge, and it faded. But low dosage on Lobelia. I've never found a shred of any of these herbs that they like to demonize actually really harming or hurting someone or killing someone like they say of things like Lobelia. But it's always good. It was a lesson learned in not just guzzling down any herb that I get, right? Because presumably these were ingestible herbs because I was buying them in bulk, but that wasn't a very good practice. You should always look at what you're trying first. This was years ago, but okay. Juniper, another one that's very good. Hang on a second. I'm just counting here. There we go. Juniper is another one that's very good that area down there for the prostate, the urinary, and this is powerful. If you look up Juniper, you'll find information on this. I actually love Juniper for a lot of things. I love Juniper as a seasoning. It's very good for a gamey seasoning on things like pork or chicken, or honestly a lot of stuff. So it's a great seasoning, and good stuff. And last but not least is Marshmallow Root. Another one. Marshmallow Root kind of forms a mucus, and it's a very soothing herb. And so let's put 10 grams of that Marshmallow Root in there as well. Okay, there we go. And we've got all that. Usually I order loose herbs, guys, because loose herbs do last longer. There's some herbs that don't grind up in a blender very well, and they tend to be kind of real pulpy. And so you'll see some of these I have powder versions, because if you buy powder versions commercially, they have a machine that really powders it. And a blender with certain herbs will only powder so much. So loose herbs, though, tend to have a better shelf life. And if I get powdered herbs in certain things that I use frequently, it's because it's simpler. But generally, I'll go to like Pen Herb for all of this kind of stuff. There's certain herbs I have that are a little harder to source, but usually I'll go to like Pen Herb for the basics. And just get 4-ounce bags. In fact, I'll show you the herb room here real quick as we finish up. This is just extras hanging from the ceiling. So stuff that I use a lot, I buy 1-pound bags of. And so they go in the jars, right? They're in the jars. And then here's my extra up here. And then tinctures are here. And then formulas and preparations that are complete are here. Everything's alphabetized and everything. I like to be organized about it. But, you know, this is all the herbs, all the spices. I mean, if you're cooking, you come in this room and get the spices you need. If you want to make medicine, you come in this room. Because it's all God's medicine, right? So I am going to, I thought I was going to grab something. Oh yes, Kel was in there. Kel mentioned her essential oils. And essential oils are good. I use them in some of my formulas. In fact, I have a mouthwash that I've made with essential oils and some other things recently that I'm actually quite liking over the commercialized, fluoridated mouthwashes. So I have an essential oil mouthwash. Maybe we'll make that one of these days. I also have a respiratory cream that I use kind of like Vicks that I think is really good, and that's one of my own formulas. And that one is made with essential oils in my 531 base. So my 531 base is a coconut oil base, but the problem with coconut oil for the salves and things is it melts in the warm temperatures like this, and it just turns to liquid. So it doesn't tend to keep that creamy state, right? You whip it up and you make it nice and you put it in a jar. I don't know if I have a jar of it here, but it doesn't hold its state if it gets warm, because coconut oil melts at what, 75 degrees? Thanks guys, yeah, it's cool. I like my things organized. But you know what? If you think about it, all that stuff in there is less than some people spend on a visit to the doctor's office, right? So this is ways that we can be self-sufficient and liberty-minded. Yeah, so this is respiratory cream here, and it's just, it's very creamy. But what it is it's for the record, and I don't have the ratios handy, but this has eucalyptus, peppermint, rosemary, thyme, lavender, clary sage, wintergreen, pine, ravensara, and oregano in a base of coconut oil, shea, and beeswax, and that's my 531. So it would be 5 parts coconut oil, 3 parts shea butter, and 1 part beeswax. I've got it written down, but I'm pretty sure that's correct. And what that does is it makes a smooth, creamy salve, but it also brings in the stiffness. So it has a melting point. It can be in 95 degree weather and not turn to liquid, but it's also very easy to melt off in your hands. Plus you get the benefit of the shea and the beeswax, which are very good products. But essential oils are good. I mean, here's some of my essential oils right here. I have lots of them around here and we make lots of stuff, and I know Kel's into essential oils and a lot of you guys probably are. Just don't limit yourself. Essential oils are only a small part of herbal medicine. So because essential oils are popular right now, I think sometimes it's like, well, essential oils are the do-all, end-all. But, I mean, that's like saying that chicken is the do-all, end-all, and steak should be ignored. And I don't think that, in fact. And yes, I did make loose herb steak, because if I had to choose only one, I would probably choose steak, of course, but I would choose loose herbs over essential oils if I could only have one in most cases. Essential oils are very portable, which is nice. So if I had to be on the run, a folio of essential oils would be good. The problem with essential oils is they're very potent and they're powerful, which in some cases can actually be a negative. You do have to be very careful with that. But also, there's far more limited options in essential oils. I mean, we have herbal antibiotics and things like cryptolepis and most of these herbs we use today. And so you could say, well, yes, there's an equivalent to all those in essential oils, which might be partially true, but an oil is not always the best way to deliver something. So it's just another way, right? It's like tincture versus capsule versus salve. There's different ways to blend and mix and deliver things, and don't limit yourself. Okay, we're going to blend this up. I didn't make that much today. I probably should have made more, but I think it's enough for right now. And what I'm going to do is, this is just the small jar on my blend tech. I will use the big one if I'm doing a lot of things. And so I'm just going to go over here and we're going to blend it up. Okay, Swan is a good sleeper. All right, so let's take a look. Anytime you have cayenne pepper in these, they tend to be... And so what I'll do, I will blend this up a little bit more, but you can see kind of our product here. And what we'll do is we'll just take this and put it in capsules. I might put it in the big jar. I'm liking the way the big jar blends the hard stuff sometimes a little bit better. Dry stuff is hard on blenders. So it's good. There's the formula. We'll capsule that up into double O gelatin capsules, which I won't do tonight simply because it'll take too long, but it's good stuff. All right, so I'm going to review again. We did 1 part of marshmallow root, lobelia, juniper, ginger root, parsley root, gravel root, Uva Ursi, 2 parts of Oregon Grape. You could make that 1. You could mix these up a little depending on what you favor. And a 1/2 part of cayenne pepper, which if you like spicy, just go ahead and make it a whole part. Sometimes the cayenne is irritable to people's stomachs. It's very good. So if you're taking a formula that has cayenne in it and it's bothering your stomach, just do it with a meal, and it usually doesn't cause an issue. And of course, I always keep cayenne around for things like hemorrhaging and stuff like that. A teaspoon of cayenne pepper in a glass of water. I've heard amazing things about that for hemorrhaging, even gunshot wounds and things like that. So I always keep some in my first aid kit. And I'm going to blend this up off camera a little bit more, because as you can see, marshmallow root in particular, that's why I use powder sometime. You can see how it gets kind of these fibers. And it's a little more work to grind up. And so I'm going to take a couple minutes and really, really pulverize that in the larger container. So just a couple things for you guys to kind of think about, throw out your own variants, and of course you got the cranberry juice like we talked about in the beginning, and that will be combined with this. So hit it from all angles. That's always my theory. Don't limit yourself. Don't limit yourself to essential oils. They're only part of the process. Essential oils are just herbs. And so a lot of times essential oils are looked at like, well, they're their own specialty. I wouldn't really say that. I think I would not be on that page probably, because an herb is an herb. So I have lots of herbs in loose form that are also in essential oil form. The essential oil form is essentially the concentrated oil of that. But remember that an essential oil is essentially distilling out the oil, okay? So it's leaving all the other compounds of the natural herb. And so there's herbalists that have a good argument when they say, well, we're closer to the natural product by using just the loose raw herb. And Dr. Christopher is one of those that he wasn't that into essential oils, because in a way it's a processed out version of the original herb, even though a pure essential oil is going to be based on that herb. Now, use whatever brand has a good reputation. I use Eden's Garden is what you'll see on my essential oils, because they are good oils, they have a good reputation, and they're far, far cheaper than one of the mainstream brands that's heavily marketed, like doTERRA or Young Living or something like that. And as far as I know, their oils are fine. Of course, there's always a scandal floating around somewhere. But in my experience, I just don't want to pay 5 times more for something that I know I can get a quality product elsewhere. And so multi-level marketing things and things that are kind of fatty, not fatty, but faddish, right? They tend to get overinflated on price and stuff because they're paying for that marketing. So if you're into doTERRA, if that's what you do, if you sell it, that's fine. But I'm not stuck on that, and I don't use those myself because they're no better than other products out there. People say, oh, doTERRA certified therapeutic grade or something like that. That means absolutely nothing. It's simply a made-up, it's actually a trademarked marketing term they made up. I don't really like disingenuous things like that, so that's why I beat up on doTERRA a little bit. The companies like them have really promoted the overuse of internal use of essential oils, sometimes dangerously so. I think they've backed off a little bit on that, but they've caught a lot of flack for that. You shouldn't lightly just be dumping essential oils in and taking them internally. I'm not saying that you should never take them internally, but just those over-marketing things like pretending something's certified or therapeutic when really it's just a made-up, meaningless term that's disingenuous and dishonest, it kind of puts me off, and so does 5 times the price. So use whatever works for you, though, right? Doesn't have to be the same as me. Just don't limit yourself to only oils. Don't limit yourself to only loose herbs. That's why I expanded into essential oils, and I use those for certain things. Because for some things, they just blend, right? You can diffuse those. You can use them as a salve. And I'm sure there's ones that would be good for a UTI or for prostate, things like that, like we're talking about today. And so it might be worth, if you have essential oils and you want to make a formula, it might be worth looking into this now so when you need it, you have it available. However, what we talked about today, I think you'll find if you study formulas for this kind of an issue, you'll find these to be pretty proven. One of the things I like about loose herbs is you've got formulas sometimes that have been proven for 100 years, right? So you've got herbalists like Dr. Christopher, and he's talking about a formula that was from some herbalist that was before him. And so you get a lot of this generational knowledge with loose herbs that I think is a little bit lacking in some of the stuff that's more popular now, like essential oils and things like that. Which isn't to say we shouldn't push forward in research and stuff, because anything to stay away from the patented FDA crime syndicate controlled drugs that are meant to keep you coming back for more. I mean, if you can avoid those, I'm all for it. Have fun, guys. Share your thoughts, your ideas. In terms of dosage, I would look up Dr. Christopher's prostate formula, because that's largely what this formula is, and see, and bear in mind, this is called prostate formula, but the reason I blended this the way I did is because prostate, UTI, kidney stones, these herbs pretty well all cross over. And so you might find that you want to get a different formula or buy a more specific formula or make it a little bit differently. But you'll find that the herbs I use today cross over into all those for the men's side and the woman's side pretty well. If you want a lot of formulas and stuff, the School of Natural Healing is a bit of a spendy book, but it has the best formulas in one place, pretty much that I've ever seen in a very simple form. And there's also a lot of learning information, but it's not light reading. I mean, it's a big book. Another one that I started with is the Encyclopedia of Herbs, I think is what it's called, and it has a lot of illustrations, and it's just a good general reference. I don't use it as much anymore, but it was really phenomenal getting started when I would get these herbs, and I would just be like, okay, what is this? And it's illustrated, it's alphabetical, you can look up an herb, and you can verify what its active properties are and what it's used in most commonly. It's a great way to keep yourself on top of it if you, let's say you're making a formula or something and you want to double check that you're not using the wrong thing. So the Encyclopedia of Herbs, there's a ton of books. Maybe we'll do a book show one day. But Dr. Christopher stuff, all his formulas are also online if you search for Dr. Christopher formulas, but this book actually has all the ratios in them. So a lot of times I'll go here first, and then I might make my own variation and do that. But since we're on here, and you guys are like the dedicated few who care about this stuff, let's just go in. I'm bringing my light with me. Ooh, a little bright. Okay, so let's see here. Let me just flop this. What do I have? Let's see. That is not herbs. That's marketing. Herbal Antibiotics and Herbal Antivirals. Phenomenal books. This stuff could be... Herbal Antibiotics is almost legendary level in terms of dealing with serious stuff. We're talking about a failing world of antibiotics and solutions for a real, like, you know, post-collapse world or just practical everyday stuff. Some of the herbs in here are not common, and you'll have to get them imported. They're not impossible to come by, but... you know, Cryptolepis, for example, is not that common in the States. I believe it comes out of Africa. I think I got my Cryptolepis from Canada, and it's legal and all that. It's nothing, you know, it's nothing that's problematic in that front. But I would say, I don't know where my Cryptolepis is, but I mean, I have a bottle of Cryptolepis tincture I made like this, and if you were to go out and try and buy that, it'd probably cost you a few $100s. But you can buy a pound of Cryptolepis for probably 50 or 60. This one's very popular. I honestly haven't read it much, but there is a lot of recipes in this one, so it's very popular. You'll see, I have a lot of books. Here's the Encyclopedia of Herbal Medicine that I was talking about. My general go-to reference for formulas is the Dr. Christopher book, and for more intense scientific stuff on antivirals and herbal antibiotics is Stephen Boehner's. So those are phenomenal, and I don't even know what else. I mean, here's an essential oils book. That's an illustrated one. And so that's good, although honestly I use essential oils in basically the same way I would use other herbs, other than being cautious because they're far, far stronger. So if you can imagine a loose herb like a tincture, you know, I mean, let's say a loose herb like ginger, right? Somebody mentioned ginger. So you make a cup of ginger tea and you put some ginger and some peppermint or something like that. You're really not gonna, you could drink a lot of it, right? I mean, it's just a tea, and it's medicinal, it's powerful, it's beautiful stuff, but it's very natural and it's very self-balancing. And so while there are some herbs out there, obviously you don't want to be going and finding belladonna and making a big old cup of tea out of it. But most herbs that you're going to see used medicinally don't have negative effects. Always do your research, of course. Don't just say, oh, Gavin said I could take any herb. That's not what I'm saying. Then you get to tinctures. Okay, so you have herbs, you have infusions, which are probably the weakest in a sense. You have a decoction, which is kind of like making tea, but you're boiling it and making it strong. That works better for some herbs than others. Then you have a tincture. The tincture is where you take, and here's Cryptolepis tincture. So we take the herb and you mix it in an alcohol base. This is a 1 to 5, dry root 1 to 5 in 60% alcohol, and then letting it soak in that for like 6 to 8 to 10 weeks, right? So now you have what's essentially a concentrate of that herb. You press it out and you have what's called a tincture. You don't take a bottle of tincture and just guzzle it down. Now, some people make tinctures out of glycerin because they don't want to have the alcohol in it. The traditional way is with the alcohol. Certain herbs need that alcohol to get the infusion out of the herbs effectively. And there are some things, alternatives to that if you don't want to do that. But we're talking about small amounts here. It's not like you're taking a bottle of tincture and drinking it like a bottle of tea, right? A dosage of a tincture is usually going to be about I don't know, a teaspoon, a tablespoon, something like that. So from there, you have your tinctures. Then you have dry herbs. So infusion, decoction, tincture is your liquid herbs traditionally in level of strength. Then you have your dry herbs, which of course are varying by herb, but they're not going to be super strong. You're going to take those in capsules, and those are going internally, and they have to be digested. And so different herbs are going to pass the digestive tract wall differently, and all kinds of that stuff. So again, all these herbs work better in different situations. Now you get to essential oils, and essential oils are way up here in strength and in potential danger, right? I mean, I've almost never heard, I don't think I know of a case, right, short of somebody flat out eating poison. In a medicinal herb, I'm not sure I could find you in any of these mainstream herbs. I don't think I could find a case of anyone overdosing to the point where it killed them. You just don't really see that. Essential oils, I don't know if we've seen that or not, but they have certainly put people in the hospital. And in all cases, I would say on those, it's because they took them internally, and that is way over promoted, and they just went for it, right? So just be careful. Remember, if a tincture, right, if an infusion is mild, a decoction is medium, and a tincture is strong, a essential oil is probably, 20, 50, 100 times stronger than that. And so keep that in mind when you're working with it. And so usually, in some ways, you're actually going to have less effectiveness with essential oils by taking them internally. One of the benefits of essential oils is that they can infuse into your skin. And still, you wouldn't usually use them neat. You would dilute them in this, like in a salve that I made. There's actually an advantage of that for a lot of things because it's going through your dermal layer and into your bloodstream, whereas taking things orally is going through your digestive system. So let's say you take an herb that doesn't pass the digestive tract wall that well. For example, golden seal and Oregon grape don't pass the digestive wall. So if you're dealing with a bacteria that's in your GI system, it's going to get right down there, right? But a minimal amount of it is actually crossing over through the digestive wall and into the bloodstream. And so there's things you can take with it. For example, licorice will be used as a synergist oftentimes to help that pass over. Stephen Harold Boehner talks about this quite a bit in his books because he's very into the science of it. Essential oils, I would argue, are probably more effective externally in many cases, because if you're dealing with an herb that doesn't pass the GI well, but you need it to help your head, right? Or you need it to help some other issue, your lungs, let's say, you may not actually be getting very good effectiveness. You might be giving yourself a tummy ache, but it may not actually be getting it as well where it needs to. And one of the huge advantages of salves and oils, and you can of course make salves from loose herbs. I'll take these herbs like I did today, and I could make a salve by just cooking them at about 170 degrees in that same formula, that same oil-based formula that I mentioned earlier with the beeswax, the shea butter, and the the coconut oil, right? So I could make a salve that way. That's how I make the book, Dr. Christopher's Bone and Tissue Ointment, and how I make that. There's an article on callmegav.com of how I do that and the whole process of making that, and I just spend an afternoon and I make a big batch. Essential oils are not only really easy to make a salve with, because you take an oil base like a coconut oil or some other blend like I do, and you just get your ratio and you put it in there and you whip it up, and you can make a salve really quickly. And now you have this salve that can be used surfacely. So, for example, a respiratory salve, maybe I could take that internally, but I want it in my respiratory system. So by putting it here, like I would Vicks or something like that, I'm actually using it in the most effective way possible, I would argue. So just don't fall for the fads. Just dig in and be willing to expand your horizons a little bit and not get stuck on any one method. You know, study people's research, and there's a lot of information out there, and have some fun with it. You know, get a storage room and label your jars and get them organized, and then you can share this information with other people, which hopefully I'm doing with you guys here tonight. So I'm going to call this good. I know these ones always go long, but these are for the dedicated few that really want to expand their self-sufficiency and ability to love their neighbor. And so hope you guys enjoy, and again, do your research. I'm not a doctor. This is just how I would do it. All right? You guys have a good night. Be well.